Welcome to the Missouri Instructional Leaders Network, where we bring together Missouri instructional leaders to share their experiences, grow professional relationships, and build curriculum and instruction skills. My name is Valerie Montgomery, and this morning I'm here with Dr. Sarah Booth-Riss, who is going to share her advice on how to create a network for your next position. Good morning, Dr. Booth-Riss. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Should we go ahead?
Well, would you like to share a little bit about your experience in education? And then from there, if you want to just go ahead and start your presentation.
Absolutely. My first job was a teacher for children with behavior disorders. And quite honestly, being in special ed, I think helps you be a better administrator and curriculum and instruction person, because you learn to write all those objectives and evaluation systems. I also taught third grade, and then I had the joy of being assistant principal and principal of Metcalf Laboratory School at Illinois State University, and I was there 11 years. It's a great place. We specialized in doing educational research, training future teachers, disseminating best practice, and also became a focus on how to fully include children with very severe disabilities. Then I, got married and moved to the St. Louis region, opened a brand new school in Riverview Gardens, Moline Elementary School. President Bush came to see us. 7 kids in our 700-person school, paid for reduced lunch. Everybody else was free. Beautiful community, learned a lot. Was assistant superintendent in Webster Groves then for curriculum and instruction, and then superintendent, and then retired, and now I work for MASA for another month and a half, Missouri Association of School Administrators, and lead the Women in Leadership initiative for them and the Superintendents Academy. And I also work for Educational Equity Consultants doing equity work in schools.
Great, thank you so much.
You bet. Should we just get going here?
Yeah.
I'm going to share my screen, and there we go. And I'm going to talk with you this morning about creating a network for your next position. I always believe that you do a little community building. With our small group this morning, we're not going to do that, but I really want to acknowledge that anytime a group of people comes together, we really need to spend, even if it's just 3 minutes, building that community. Because when you build community, you have more open sharing, you have greater trust, and you make better decisions together, because the decisions are made in the room, not in the parking lot, not an email later. We're going to talk about who a person needs to connect with, how do you connect with people when it's hard, and how do we mutually support each other. So I'm just going to ask yourself to keep in mind that we have to build community, and that when we build community, it's really all about relationships. I love Brene Brown. In this quote, Brene talks about connection is the energy that is created between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment. When you have real connections with people, you stay curious about each other, you know each other, you give each other honest feedback, and you know that feedback is just given to you to help you learn. It's not meant to criticize you in some way. In a connecting relationship, in a supportive relationship, feedback is all about helping that person grow and reflect. So let's talk about networking just a little bit. Networking really isn't just creating a long list of contacts. So many times it's like, oh, how many contacts do you have? Or whose phone number do you have? Well, it's not about just having the phone number and the name. It's about growing a new relationship, planting the seeds through those relationships. It's not real networking if there's nothing that comes out of it, if the two parties involved don't grow and grow together. That's really what networking is all about. I was at a baby shower one time, and the baby's name was going to start with K. And one of the games was, how many names do you have in your contact list that start with K? Well, being a superintendent of schools, I looked at mine, I was kind of embarrassed. I mean, I had like 400 names in my phone that started with K. And they kept going, who has 10? Who has 15? Finally, they looked at me and like, how many? I'm like, 435. And everybody laughed. I'm like, but I don't know them all. So I don't network with them all. I don't have a relationship with them all. I just might at some point in time need to call them because they perform a certain function in our school district. But they're not really a member of my network. They're just simply people I know and I can call. So when you think about connections, it's really about building your own personal community. And so just take a few minutes and think, who do you need to connect to in your job? Who do you need to communicate with on a regular basis in your job? And when you think about it, it's not only in your job, but it's in the people that you serve. So as an instructional leader, you don't only serve the teachers, you don't only serve the students, you serve the parents, you serve the broader community because they're going to hire those kids. And those kids are going to end up living in that community and leading that. And your community pays the taxes so that schools exist. And so we don't only work just for the kids and our parents and our teachers, we also work for that broader community. And sometimes we just forget that part. So when you take time to wonder about who do you need to connect with in your community, I just ask you to think outside your personal circle. Right now, that circle might be pretty small. It could be other curriculum coordinators. It could be just other assistant superintendents for curriculum and instruction. It could be just your team of administrators. But I want you to think about those groups that you have no connection with at all, but they either benefit or can contribute to the role that you play now or the role that you play in the future. I also want to think about those people you might even avoid because you just don't feel comfortable with them. The first time I went to the chamber, for example, I'm like, what do I have in common with the chamber? I don't own a shop. I don't own a bank. I'm not a business person. I'm an educator. But then I went to the chamber board meeting because my boss told me to. And so sometimes you just do what you have to do. But then once I got there, it was amazing how much we had in common and how much they wanted to be involved in the school system, especially those small little shop owners in town because they want to hire the kids. They want to use the districts to help them build their websites because they're not Schnucks, they're not Kroger's, they're not Dillard's. They don't have that big organization behind them to do all that work. And so kids can come in with excellent skills and support those businesses. And I stayed on the chamber board actually until after I retired and then stayed involved for the chamber even after I retired to help give awards to people in the community. But my point being, I wasn't comfortable going to that meeting. And once I was there, I saw the connections and the mutual benefit. They could benefit from better connections to the school district. The school district could benefit from having resources that our kids could learn from. Another example is the Senior Leadership Roundtable. Well, the Senior Leadership Roundtable in our community is made up of all leaders of senior living facilities. And again, I'm thinking, wow, what do I have? I'm not that old yet. I'm not ready to move in anywhere. And why would they be interested in schools? But the mayor wanted me to come. So again, kind of, you do what people ask you to do. So I encourage you to say yes when somebody invites you to something because they see a value that maybe you haven't seen yet. And I get there and just listen to them. And actually some of them made the comment that it was nice to have a young person in the room. And I thought, wow, this is great. I'm the young person in the room. How about it? And I'm getting close to retirement. But hearing them talk, I'm like, well, what do you guys need? What do you guys need? What's a need you have? And the seniors said, well, one, we don't know how to use our technology. And sometimes we don't know how to use the remote on our TV. We don't know how to use our phone. And we're tired of being around old people all day. And that had never occurred to me that people living in senior facilities are tired of being around old people all day. And so we developed a group of students that came every Tuesday with an adult from the school district. And they were kind of the tech kids. They weren't involved in anything either. They weren't in sports and they weren't in choir. They hadn't found their niche in the district, but they had good tech skills. So the seniors would sign up and the students would go to their door and then go in and help them with whatever they needed tech-wise. And sometimes it really was the remote control, and sometimes it was their iPad. But the point being, if I hadn't gone to that meeting where I wasn't sure there was a connection, I would not have been able to make that connection. And I will also tell you, when you go to apply for your next job, those people are fabulous references for you. As you move up the ladder in education, you get closer and closer to the community. And so the people hiring you want to know you can connect with all types of people. And you do make those connections that help benefit your students. So here's just a list of some groups to think about. And you don't have to be a superintendent to be involved in these. My assistant superintendents went, sometimes my principals went, sometimes the curriculum coordinators went. But just think about your own community. Everybody probably has a clergy group in their community. Typically, they might have coffee together once a month or even once a week, but you just ask, can I come sometime and visit? Or you invite them in to visit with you to learn about something about the district or about what you're working on in particular. And certainly there's all those service organizations. People have city government. You probably will have a library no matter how big your district is. Certainly local businesses in the chamber, and even the realtors, because the realtors are out there selling your district. And they hear from the people that are about to buy their district what's going well with it, whether they're hearing about education and what they need to know. Depending upon where you live, you might want to connect with some farmers. Certainly the police and the firefighters, it's good to know who they are and find out their perception of the district and what you can do to help support them and how they can help support you. Even if you're the preschool coordinator, having public servants come in and talk about their job so kids become comfortable. You don't want the first time you meet somebody to be, oh, I want you to come do something special for our kids. A relationship is a mutual. It's not only taking, it's giving. So what can you give back to the police and firefighters? For example, some of our police officers would participate in our equity training, which was fabulous. They were dealing with a diverse community and needed to know how to respond appropriately and have a deeper understanding of diversity, equity, inclusion. So having them participate with us was terrific. And then you really want to get to know people that have the job you want to have. Certainly love the place you're at. Do a great job there, because that's the only way to move up, is to be great where you are. But you also want to start connecting with the people you want to be next. You want to be a principal next, connect with some principals. You want to be a superintendent next. How do you connect with them? I just ask you, keep thinking, who else is it that I should connect with, no matter what your current role is? But basically, we have to just quit being in our safety zone. We tend to surround ourselves with the same people all the time. If we go to a meeting with all different roles, you'll see people coagulate together with people that have the same job. Force yourself to step out and just meet and greet some other people. It's like a leap of faith. Let's talk about building connections just a little bit. One of the easiest things to do is just say hello to somebody. It's like, oh, I don't know how to start the conversation. You just go up, you shake their hand and go, hi, I'm Sarah Riss, and I'm here today because of, tell me about yourself. Why are you here? Be curious about that person, but just start by saying hello. If you don't know how to start, just say hi. Hi, I'm so-and-so, and who are you? And why are you here? There's nothing better than to hear somebody call you by your own name. And one of the tricks to learning people's names is to say their name at least 3 times in your initial conversation. So for example, maybe I just walk up and go, oh, hi, I'm Sarah Riss. And who are you? I read on your name tag, you work for this network. And Valerie, you would tell me, Valerie would probably say, hi, I'm Valerie Montgomery. I'm like, oh, Valerie, tell me about your job. I just said it again. Valerie would tell me about her job. Wow, Valerie, that's really interesting. Tell me a little bit more. How would I get involved in that? Valerie, thanks for taking the time to visit with me. I really hope we stay connected. I'll remember Valerie's name because I just said it 3 times. And Valerie knew I was getting connected to her. So just simply saying one's name 3 times in your initial conversation helps you remember who they are. And people value when you know their name. I can't tell you really how many custodians and maintenance workers commented to me like, wow, you know my name. I'm like, well, of course I know your name. You're an important person in our district. You give an important service. You know, when the shopkeeper, you know their name, you call them by their name. That honors who they are. In the book, How to Influence People, one thing they talk about is really calling people by their name and honoring who they are. Then some things to do just to get ready for that next job is get yourself involved in committee work. And I mean committee work that's not your regular job. So if you're the communication arts coordinator, for example, yes, do communication arts. You have to. You're leading that group most likely. But maybe you also want to be on the strategic planning committee so that you get to understand that role in the district. Or maybe if you're the math curriculum coordinator, certainly you're going to be on the math committee, but maybe you also want to get on the finance committee for the district because you have that math background. Have a job shadow somebody else in the district. Ask them, can I just be a principal for the day with you? Or can I be the assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction with you for the day or follow the superintendent? It's pretty rare they're going to say no. One, they just found out, wow, you have aspirations to be a leader in a broader sense. And then 2, why would they say no? You just want to understand their job better. Take on additional assignments. It might mean co-leading like a strategic planning committee. If you can lead a math committee, a curriculum committee, you can lead a district-wide committee. It's all about facilitation. You're just changing the topic. And a lot of times people in curriculum and instruction, because they have a strong background, most likely in professional development, are some of the best facilitators. And you don't have to have all the knowledge. You just have to be able to bring the knowledge out of the people that are in the meeting. And then certainly get involved in your local community activities. If you're mostly at the elementary level and you want to be K-12 as superintendent or assistant superintendent, then start going to some secondary activities. If you're a high school person and have a high school focus, you're going to want to start finding out what it's like in the elementary school and go to some of those community engagement activities. I would also suggest, just thinking outside and some of the fun things that go on in the community in which you live and work, or just work. Serving barbecue with the Lions Club. You're meeting people out in the community. You're also practicing building relationships. And I will tell you the easiest way to build community relationships is to serve at some kind of festival. You see every person that goes by the food line. You get to say hi to every person. They get to see you. It's non-threatening because you know what to do. You ask them, do they want chicken or pork? It's very simple. So engage yourself in some little things like that, because that boosts your comfort level of engaging with the broader community. And then certainly there's out of district activities that many of you are probably already in, but maybe you haven't thought about it as a way to build connections for the future. Certainly your coursework is the way you build connections. How you interact with the other students in the class and with the professors build connections for your next job. I think one of the saddest things that happened to our son, he got his master's degree during COVID and all of it was online. He had 0 face-to-face classes. And I think what he missed was the ability to make those stronger connections of who's going to hire you next, or who's going to write a recommendation for you next, or who do you call to be a resource in your district? And then how do you go back and be a resource for them? Certainly attending conferences and workshops, and I don't mean the ones that are directly related to your profession. If you're currently focused on one content area, then I'd annually try to go to something that's broader in nature. So you're meeting other people. That's an easy way to go meet people that have the job you want to have next. And if you keep going to the same one a couple of times, you're going to really start knowing the people. For example, I know Valerie was at the Women in Leadership Summit that MASA puts on every March now. Next year will be the 5th annual, and we've grown over time so that now we have a few teachers come all the way up to probably the majority are superintendents, but superintendents are there meeting other future female leaders, and you're meeting people that might have the leadership role that you want to have in the future, and you're learning right alongside them. You're also becoming comfortable knowing that just because they have a higher title than you doesn't mean they're any smarter than you. It doesn't mean that they're any more talented than you are. They just have the experiences that have got them there. And so you become more comfortable having those conversations at the table with them. So when you go interview, you're just having a conversation with a person that, I had a conversation with somebody just like that last week at the Women in Leadership Summit. Getting involved, we've talked a little bit already about organizations and committees. I also encourage you to present at a conference and maybe do it with a friend. It's easy to write those proposals. Most of them are a paragraph, whether they're for MASA or for a curriculum conference or ASCD. I'll tell you, I probably presented for ASCD every year until I became superintendent. They're easy to write for. You're going to meet a ton of people. People are going to meet you, and you're going to build new connections. And if you are really aspiring to go up the ladder, I'd look for those aspiring workshops. Our cohort is 4 days long, and this really isn't a pitch for it. Illinois has one. There's several different ones. There's an aspiring principals one, but because they're cohorts, our people stay together for 4 days. They create a network. One of our focuses is to create a network of people you can call for additional information and activities even after the session is over. And then just attending those networks. I'm glad you're participating in this one. I'm going to talk toward the end in just a few minutes about what to do when you have a network and how to really make that network functional for you and all the other participants. Oops. I also encourage you to have a mentor. I mean, I don't care how long you've been in your position, you can always have a mentor, somebody that you aspire to be. And then I also encourage you to mentor somebody else. That's a good professional growth for you as well as for them. So I want you to think about who can assist you with a group, who can help you enter some of these groups. So just think about, who do you know that you think could help introduce yourself to somebody else? Could be a board member. Maybe you know a board member is very active with a Rotary. You could ask them, would you ever want to take me to a Rotary meeting? I'm really curious about the Rotary. And one, they would love to show off that they can bring a school leader with them to their meeting. But just think of those people that you know are involved in something else and just ask them, could you take me sometime? And they'll help you. And plus, you just honor the importance of what they do, not only in the school district, but also out in the community. And they don't really need to be somebody in your inner circle. When we're looking to expand and grow into other positions, we need to take the time to expand our circle and be brave about that. A couple of real simple things that will help you is wear your name tag. People know what you do. They know who you are. It's easier for them to make a connection with you. We talked about volunteering at local events. I don't care if it's passing out programs at the Jazz Festival, helping at the farmer's market, whatever it might be. Get involved and be seen and get comfortable making those connections. Bring a student to perform or show off a skill. I mean, if you're in charge of technology, there's so many robotics things and tech things that so many local organizations would love to see what the students are doing. I think we don't do enough of that as school districts to really tout the talent of our students and the impact of our education system. You can volunteer to be a guest speaker at one of their meetings, talking about what's happening in the district and what's new and better in your arena. And then just keep a group of people around you, all types of people, so that you know how to build those connections. They can help build them for you. Let's talk about how do we support one another. And I just want you to reflect for a few minutes. What actions are you taking now to support another person who's maybe wanting to grow and move on into a deeper position? What are you having trouble connecting with? What's been hard for you? And then don't be afraid to ask your peers how they could assist you. So once you've got a network, like let's talk about having the network here. Once you have a network of people, and it could be 3 to 5 people, it doesn't have to be a big network of 20 to 30 people. There's some things you do to build a strong network of colleagues. First, you set a regular meeting date and you just stick to it. And you never leave the current session until you know when you're going to meet the next time. That allows people to put it on their calendar. If you're not meeting on a regular basis, if you're forever doing the scheduling nightmare, people get frustrated and they just click off of that email and they don't participate. So having a regular meeting date, even if just 2 people come, then the next time each of you bring a friend. But you want to have a regular meeting time. You want to have identify who's going to be the facilitator for the meeting. You can have people like me who are quick starts, meaning I'll put a conversation out there like immediately, and somebody has to tell me I need to wait my turn, and that's okay. A facilitator makes sure everybody's voice gets into the room or into the space, whether you do it via Zoom or in person over coffee, and you rotate that position. If it's always the same person, they become kind of the president. And when you're creating a network, you want kind of equality of responsibility, equality of value, equality of position. And so you rotate that position. People just take a turn. You also want to identify a topic and make sure that people know that this is the topic we're going to focus on, but maybe there's a hot topic that they just have to bring up. Jesse just put out this new rule and nobody knows what they're talking about. So you have that conversation. But the topic for the day might be how to get ready for math. Be sure you personally put it on your calendar as an important meeting. Networks are an important part of your professional development, so it's a priority. It goes on your calendar just like an important committee meeting would. And you have to take time to get to know each other at every meeting. Make sure you exchange phone calls, have email groups, have texting groups. So if it's a quick question, you can connect with that network right away. And just approach it with, you're investing in every single person that you're networking with. And you want to invest in them just as much as you want them to invest in you. It's that mutual relationship that's important. And then also just make sure you have some fun together. Too many times we're just like, oh, dry in business. And we have to be able to have fun together and relax together. And just remember that networking is really all about building relationships. And relationships are based on fun and joy, not just on hard work. So we're going to break into groups, but I think we're not going to do that. So I just want you to think about, what would you do for your next step in terms of creating a network? And anybody have any questions? Valerie or Shauna? Shauna, nice to meet you.
Hi, I really appreciate, sorry, I hopped on late.
Hey, it's all right.
I really appreciate many of the things, and I kept hearing a common theme of this idea of you have to not have a fixed mindset of, I like how you mentioned you can get better at relationships. I think some people think, oh, I'm either good or I'm not. And hopefully a lot of people resonate that we can all, that's something even social people struggle with.
Absolutely.
And this idea of, to expand, you really have to be brave and take these risks. So thank you for just laying out really good ideas. I think a question I have, because I work with Val here on the network, is how can we even support districts virtually for people who are, especially we serve a lot of really rural schools who maybe you don't have that opportunity somewhere. I think that's where we're trying to kind of meet that gap. And I wondered if you had any ideas of how we could help leaders do this, even if it's virtual. I mean, we've learned how to make good relationships even virtually, but I wanted to know your thoughts about that.
Sure, absolutely. And I work a lot with rural educators because I also do the Superintendents Academy and aspiring superintendents. So I work with superintendents in years 1 through 4. And the newest superintendents tend to be in the smaller districts. And then they move up. And so that position actually turns over pretty quickly. And what we've found is we have a regular meeting time, and it looks like you have that. And we have a key topic. I guess I would ask, you might want to do a survey at some point. What's the best time for people to come together? And maybe don't have a presenter, just the focus is on, we want to have people come together to talk about how we can better support one another and get to know each other. For example, a friend of mine, Karen Hall out of St. Louis University, and I wanted to work together to create a network of people doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work. It's hard work. And there aren't that many diversity, equity, inclusion leaders in the state of Missouri. The St. Louis people were kind of getting together on a regular basis, Kansas City people a little bit, but then we've got Columbia and everybody else in the center. And we did a survey first of one, would you like to come together? Do you want to do in person? Do you want to do Zoom? They had great feedback into that. They had great feedback into what the topics were. And we ended up doing our first one in person and had a really great turnout. But we focused a lot of that first conversation around building the network. What do you need as a group of professionals working together? And so then we designed the future sessions based on what they told us they need. So it was a lot of time listening to the needs of the people we're trying to serve, as opposed to, gosh, we're going to try this month. Gosh, we're going to try this month. And so they owned it. They own the network. And I think when you're building networks, the importance really it centers on having the members of the network feel like they own the network. It's theirs. And so they create it, they change it, they evolve it. And I think that's the same thing with rural educators. I would bet maybe this time of day maybe is not easy for them to get off, so they view it later. That's a learning module. But what would be the best time of day for them if they wanted to all be on screen together and have a conversation together? Just my 2 cents worth. So,
oh, that's really great.
and there's a, they're all doing the curriculum work because that they're the person. So,
Well, and that's why unintentionally I didn't realize our business is primarily helpful to rural, because we can come in and give them the systems and do it because they can't do it.
right. They only have so much time in the day.
Right. And, and they usually didn't have the finances to it either. So we have been able to, get rid of that barrier, but we really want to grow a network because we're very passionate about everything you're talking about here is collaboration. As a former principal myself, I felt very isolated. I'd call the person in the building next to me, but my job in urban ed was so nuts. I couldn't make it. I didn't even know about MASA meetings and so I thought there's got to still be people like me out there who were just stuck in the trenches and had no idea that was even available. How can we help plug them in? And our whole premise is, leaders have to lead teachers. And so they need to be in a PLC too. And we need to be building up their content knowledge, because if they don't, you can't hold accountable what you don't understand.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Kind of the same thing happened to us with the women in leadership piece. We started with 5 people.
Oh my goodness.
Right. And so we start with 5, and then we expanded our planning group, and we did all of our planning via Zoom. But at the end of each planning session, people would go, oh, it was just so nice to see a screen full of people that have some of the same needs that I do. And we have not only our planning meeting, but also time. We start off with a warm-up question. What brought you joy this week? Or, what are you struggling with this week? Or what's a celebration for this week? We always did community building on the screen. And now that screen hosts between 20 and 30 people on our planning team. We have 50 on our list. We never get all 50.
Well, and I think that's the hardest thing with leaders. And I would have been the same way during the day to get away. You have good intentions. We normally have 15, 20 people sign up, and then 3 or 4, because the life of a leader. And I think that's our biggest barrier probably, is just finding, and I love how you said, let's do surveys, get groups together. What would be ideal? And even if we can find 2 or 3, that helps me, I'm a go for the gusto. Like, let's just start with 50. It's not going to happen that way.
Right. Networks just grow. They start with a nucleus and then they expand, because those 5 people have a friend that they know. They're like, oh, it was great. You want to come with me next time? Even if it's Zoom, they'll just pull them in next time and share the link. So I think that sharing is real important.
Now you're retiring. What are your next plans?
I don't know yet. I mean, we've moved to Hilton Head Island, so
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
Yeah, we just moved a couple of weeks ago. So I think it's going to be about building connections here. For
Yeah.
example, with the women in leadership piece, we started with Missouri, and then I heard there was one in Illinois. One of our other planners had met a woman who was in the National Academy for Women in Leadership. They'd been in that together, and she's from Ohio. And so we were like, wow, we're pretty close geographically. We should just try to connect. And so we did over Zoom. And then we ended up pulling in some other national leaders, and we created a special event at AASA in San Antonio just for people from the Midwest. And so, that started with me knowing somebody, Sarah Marriott, who was on a couple of weeks ago, knowing somebody, and then Carrie out of Ohio knew somebody, and we contacted AASA, and then all of a sudden your screen has gone from like 3 people to 10 people. And then we had this lovely event in February with about 30 women from throughout the Midwest, leaders and we had national speakers that did it for free. So
Wow.
we just had to go, oh, we have a little bit in common. You guys want to think about what could be, so you reach out and ask. And I will tell you, I'm an introvert severely. I hate going to a cocktail party. I love to go. Once I get there, my husband and I kind of travel in tandem, and we have to force ourselves to branch out and meet new people. So this move to Hilton Head is going to be interesting. But I had to practice. I appreciate what you said about practicing your social skills and just being curious about people. I mean, I need to go next door now and go, I'm your new neighbor. Tell me where you bought your flowers. How'd you get the pine mulch? I need to be curious about her so that we become friends, and then maybe she'll want to be curious about me.
Yeah, I think that's just something that's really resonated with me is that, and I'm a social person, but yet that's really difficult. And, we make up and it's just putting yourself out there, because at the end of the day, people want to be seen and they want to be known and they want you to ask questions. And we play a different tape in our head sometimes.
Yes, we do. Right. Or we feel like we're bothering them. We're not
Yeah.
bothering them. We're honoring them. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, just kind of a reminder, again, networking isn't about creating that long list of people. It's about planting relationships so that something can grow. For the Women in Leadership thing, it's gone from about 60 people to over 180 this year. We hope it's going to continue to grow in Missouri. And that's been growing because somebody else said, wow, I had a great experience. And they invited them the next year. And now it's going, there's several national groups coming together. But we planted seeds. We just didn't create contacts. So plant relationships, grow your organization, grow your own personal contact list. Thanks for having me this morning. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. There was, I'll stick with that seed analogy. You've planted a lot of seeds of ideas for me. There's a lot of food for thought and how we can really enhance our online network. You've given a lot of practical skills, practical advice. So thank you so much. Shauna, did you have any other questions?
No, thank you. And enjoy Hilton Head. My best friend travels there every year and absolutely loves it. So.
Oh yeah, that's why we're here. Yeah. Terrific. Thanks so much, ladies. Thanks for your work. Bye-bye.
Bye.